Hello and welcome back to PA Chalk Up. I'm your host Manny, and today we have Mesa. How we doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. So, if you let everyone know who you are and what you do and how you got to where you are.
Yeah, my name is Mesa McNEely. I'm currently a strength and conditioning coach for a professional women's soccer team. Football, excuse me. Manny likes to correct me on that. Um,
Hey, I did it to Oscar too. I will do
I
it to
know,
everyone.
I did catch it, and I'm trying to be better than Oscar. But yeah, getting here was a little bit of a journey. I spent about a year working in college basketball, actually, and I truly thought basketball was going to be my route. And I just feel like life has a funny way of showing you what you need and what you don't need. And so I ended up back home in Lexington, Kentucky, just kind of confused, didn't know what I was going to do, almost wanted to give up on coaching until I had just a real talk with myself and I decided to grind and finally get my CSCS and start interning again, which is not always fun, but I had the pleasure of working with our professional men's soccer team, which was a blessing for the past like 5 months. And we are now bringing on a women's team. And so I was fortunate to snag this position. And now I'm preparing for a whole year ahead of me as the head strength coach with the women's team. So yeah, I'm super excited.
Nice. What's that transition like between going from basketball to football and now solely focusing on female?
Ooh, it was a huge transition because I think for the longest I was so focused on basketball. And all of my research was in basketball, all of my time was spent in basketball. But I feel like in strength and conditioning, as long as you have the foundations and the principles, you can apply them to different sport, different ages, different times of the year. And so I was able to take stuff like from Daniel Bove, quadrant system, and apply that to our match days with soccer. Same thing as I worked with Connexon GPS with
Hmm.
basketball, and then now working with Stat Sports GPS with football. And so being able to have those foundations of like what are we looking for, and now we're just looking for slightly different things in football rather than basketball. I will say the culture is a lot different, especially just at the college level to the pro level, but basketball to football as well. The culture is very different, not
How
in a bad
so?
way. I think, I mean, just realistically, if you look at college basketball and it's a smaller team, you have a bigger team in football, and then not only that, the men's team, a lot of them come from different countries, and so the culture changes. I will say though, they are probably some of the most respectful boys I've ever worked with. Like every single training, it starts with a handshake, it ends with a handshake, and even looking at the women's side, I believe we will have a super high level of professionalism. And being a female soccer player myself, like growing up, there were always standards and rules that we abide by. And I just think it's like a female soccer thing. Basketball is a little more chill. They have different types of standards, but it was definitely a more chill environment, a different culture. But
How has culture shifts happened within teams that you've worked in, and how did you then come into those sort of already established cultures and sort of try to fit in with them?
yeah, it's difficult. I mean, especially being a female coach, I honestly was more scared about working with female athletes than with men. Yeah, which is weird. I think I was more nervous about working with male coaches, but as far as the male athletes, I feel like I could relate to them a little better. Just in a not in a sense that I'm female, but when it came to basketball, I felt like we had a lot of the same music taste and I came in, I'm like, "What's up, bro?" Like shaking hands. We're listening to NBA Youngboy. Like that was my vibe, a little bit more chill. So I felt comfortable around them. Even with the soccer guys, I felt like that too. I think with the women, sometimes I feel like there there's just different levels with women,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. I don't even know how to explain it, but I think
Yeah.
sometimes you have like your leader on the team, and then you have not so much the leaders, and the leader really likes to take over. And it's just on the women's side, it's a little different. Like girls can take things a little bit more personally. Like if you're watching practice and how they interact with each other, they take things a little more personally. Whereas I watch the guys and they'll cuss each other out, get mad at each other. and then they're eating lunch together right after that. And I think that's something I'm, like, weary of coming into the girls is, like, you have to be a little bit more careful about how you approach things and how you talk to them because they I mean, as women, like, we
Mhm.
do tend to take things personally because a lot of the times it is personal, and so, yeah, I think it's a different approach, just in male-female side, and as transitioning from the men's side to the women, I think it's weird because we'll be a higher level of pro. The guys are
Mhm.
USL League One, and it's so different because you have guys who are this is the first team they've been on. You have guys where this is the like 11th team they've been on, guys who have played in the MLS, and so it's a really weird environment of different levels, almost different egos as well. But the women, like, we don't have as many opportunities for professional women's soccer in America, and I think for a lot of them, like, there's quite a few that are, like, 30 and just now getting this opportunity because they never had it before, and I think the culture is gonna be different because they want this so bad, like,
Mm.
they've never had this, they've never experienced it, or maybe a couple have experienced overseas, but to them, like, this is something they thought they would never get, and they have it, and they want to really grasp it and hold on to it.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I
100%.
think I think that's gonna be really different.
I think as well, like having a female in a male dominant environment can go one of two ways as well. It's like either you thrive, which ideally is what happens, or you get unfortunately crumpled by the intimidation of it. And the thing is, like, when I was at UW and Caroline was there, I sort of made sure that like every morning that I walked in, I would dap her up straight away.
Mhm.
Because like that little dap up can be like, okay, I actually do belong here. Like,
Yeah,
and I told her constantly, like, you deserve to be here. Like, you worked hard to be here, so let's fucking go. And I
agreed.
think it's that little shift between coaches that you can actually shape everyone's experience just by how you approach them as well.
Yeah, and that's one thing too where, like, I've never been intimidated to work with male athletes, like, I'm confident in myself. I I'm good. I walk in, I know what I bring to the table, and I'm not really nervous about it. I can take a little, they like to a little
Little
banter,
jab.
they like to
Yeah.
call it yeah, I can take it, and I can dish it back, and they don't expect it. But what I was most nervous about was working with male coaches, and that is one thing where it's like, if these guys are watching male coaches come in and not acknowledging the female coach, not giving them respect, then they're like, "Well, why should I respect them?" You know? But if they're seeing their role models, their coaches praising this woman, respecting this woman, and allowing her in this space, then they're also gonna feel the same way. And thankfully with the men, I had amazing coaches I worked with that never once made me feel like I didn't belong there or like I was even I was just an intern. Most half 3 months in, they didn't even know I was an intern. I was going to work at my other job, and they're like, "Why don't where you been? Why aren't you showing up?" I'm like, "Dude, I don't get paid. Like, I gotta go make money," you know? But it's just because the other coaches have given me so much respect that they just knew to give me the same respect, which is huge.
And I think it comes from that. Like, the whole reason I love this podcast is like, no matter your experience, I love everyone's opinion and take on the industry and their journey. That's like, it's good to support each other as well. Like, I've created a network of people just from coming in the podcast, and like, we just like push each other every single time, and I love it.
Yeah, it's awesome. I agree, like, everyone has a different experience regardless of where you've been or what you've done. We can all take a little bit of something from each other.
1000%.
Yeah.
So I want to get into you starting up this year with women's football. What are the processes that you're taking to build out their year, and what are you trying to implement straight off the bat?
Yeah, so it's gonna be a little difficult because they're playing a true European calendar. So starting in August when they have games, we will be playing until July. And they'll have maybe I think like 4 weeks off in the winter to go see family and, all that stuff. So that is a huge it's gonna be so different because we're in season pretty much the whole year. So I've definitely had to take a different approach, like, programming for college, you have your annual periodization. We have our off season, max strength, basic strength, then power, whatever. And I can't really take that approach with them. And knowing too, where some of them are 22 fresh out of college and they had a great strength program. Some of them are 30 and they've been working a full-time job for the past 8 years. I don't know what their training is like. So yeah, it's gonna be a little different, and I think this year is gonna be a big learning experience for me, but I do thankfully, my head coach is really well versed in the performance realm, and he really trusts me, and so I really wanna hit the weight room hard for the first, like, 5 weeks that we're here. I think we have 6 weeks of preseason, so the plan is
Mhm.
to go a little extra hard for about 5 weeks, deload, and then we'll probably play games that first week. And then in season, at twice twice a week, like, we have to be in there twice a week, and obviously, if we have to travel to Washington or to New York, it's gonna be a little difficult, but we have to make sure that we're training, especially where you have female soccer players with so many past knee injuries, like, I just wanna make sure that we're staying on top of it. But the biggest thing throughout season is kind of overloading different angles and taking out less of the range of motion and overloading, like pin squats, split squats, heavy trap bar pulls, hitting our main compound movement and being explosive, and then just taking care of the body the rest of the time. And I think if we're consistent with that, twice a week, maybe
Mhm.
once if we have a busy schedule, but I just don't wanna get in the habit of, "Oh, we're a little gassed, we're a little tired, we're not gonna hit the weight room." Like, no, it has to be a priority. So I'm pushing for twice a week. My coach is totally on board. Obviously, things might change during different weeks, but yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah. So how are you approaching the program building and their times of the season?
Yeah, so I have a few girls signed already that I've been working with. So we've kind of been taking it more of like an off-season phase while they're here and while they're not playing. But they're about to start in our semi-pro league. So I'm gonna have to cut back on their training a little bit. But I'm a huge fan of full body lifts, just in case we do have to miss a lift during the week, like, I don't wanna just hit lower body and we never hit upper or vice versa. But I always make sure I have an explosive movement, so I love ollies, or ollie
Mhm.
derivatives. I'm not huge on we don't have to use the whole clean the whole time, but I love a heavy pull, heavy trap bar pull, heavy shrug. And that's always gonna be, like, our main thing, maybe some med ball throws, some type of potentiation, and then any type of squat pattern, a push, a pull, a hinge, and then a core. Gotta take care of the core.
You are
So
speaking my language.
yes, so that is my programming take, and again, as we get into season, we can change the different variations based on the week, or we can change the variation based on how they're feeling, but that is my structure that I go by. And just to make sure that we're hitting everything that we need to hit. Just in case we only get it once a week, then okay, I know we got everything in that we needed. We take care of the knees, and then we're good. Throw in a little mobility in there, make sure they feel good, and yeah, that's the approach I take, whether
100%.
it's preseason, in season.
100%. I think you've nailed it. This is where I kind of have a problem with where science meets practicality in the real world. Science and theory, you essentially have sort of power block, your Olympic weightlifting. You then have your strength, your deadlifts, your squats, whatever it may be. Then you have like your conditioning, all in different phases. That's not always possible when
Yeah.
you've got seasonal demands. So like a preseason can sometimes be depending on coaching staff switches and whatnot, can be from like 3 months to like 4 weeks. I've had
Mhm.
preseasons that lasted 4 weeks. How do I prepare my athletes best for that? So I had to do power, strength, speed, all in different sessions of that week. They had three lifts, one power, one strength, one speed, or I've had to do even power, strength, speed, all in the one session, but split it up with resting.
Mhm.
Like there's so much that can knock off that periodization, that you kind of just have to be adaptable. And like
Yeah.
you nailed it. Like there's so many variables that go into it that you can't always stick to this set periodization model.
Right, it's just never gonna work that way. And I'm like, as long as I have my type of structure and I can always change it depending on what we need. But yeah, that's the same. Like in season, my idea would be, post game, maybe match day plus two. We have more of a recovery lift where we're kind of hitting full range of motion and feel good. And then we have match day minus one. That's more power, intense, moving quick. And maybe if we have time in the middle, we can hit more strength, but like you said, that's just not always gonna happen, so you have to I think at this level, like, the basics are always gonna work, and you have to be
100%.
able to adapt on the fly. That's just how it is.
100%.
Yeah.
That's like that was one of the biggest lessons as well. Like you get pulled in so many different directions that you just have to like you kind of have to roll with the punches and see where it takes you.
Yeah. I mean, there's days too we look at GPS and they were pushed a little harder than they were supposed to. And if we have an idea of, okay, this is supposed to be our high volume day, this is our low volume day, this is our high intensity day, and they got switched up, then okay, like now we need to change that in the weight room because they're gonna come in having just ran 4 kilometers and they're gassed, Now we have to adjust on our end. And if you aren't adaptable and ready for that, like it's you're not gonna you're not gonna work. It's not gonna
100%.
work.
You touched on something before, and I find this area very interesting. It's the ACL injuries, specifically in soccer. We should do the switch. I say soccer, you say football. Uh, and it's the amount of ACL injuries that happen in soccer, especially, but more even so with female athletes. And I don't think I've mentioned this to you, but I've mentioned it on the podcast. So my research, I'm doing research on female athletes and how the menstrual cycle impacts their psychophysiological sort of performance parameters. Because of the laxity and everything that happens during the menstrual cycle and the different phases and hormones, you are more likely to tear an ACL because of that. But then because your ACLs are even smaller than men's, is that even more likely. The thing that isn't spoken about enough, though, and I think this happens for men and females, most non contact ACL injuries happen because of the type of pitch that you play on, which is more a
Mhm.
3G, like Astro type pitch. And like essentially the little fibers that the Astro pitches are made of, like hook onto the grips, to the stud, sorry. And that's what drags them down. So then when you twist and pull away, that's what makes it tear. So
Oh,
like
interesting.
this area very fascinating because like I know the NFL are doing it for the soccer World Cup. A lot of the pitches are getting changed into grass for that reason.
Yeah. Yeah, we currently play on turf, but our new stadium will be grass, and we'll be getting a practice field that's grass. Which I think will be huge because, I mean, even we'll have sessions out. I've done speed sessions out with the girls, and they feel a little sore after because the turf, and it's like, we just know that it's not gonna be great for them long term. So I hope when we make that switch to the grass that maybe it'll help a little bit, but yeah, I mean, it is tough.
There's less feedback in grass, so like there's less for you to like you kind of sink a little bit more. But
Mhm.
ACL wise, it is a lot better to play on grass than turf.
Yeah,
It's quite hard to push against that solid ground and just keep going,
yeah.
twisting and doing. How do you specifically deal with ACL injuries and how they then progress their playing and programming from that?
Yeah, so I haven't specifically dealt with an ACL injury with like return to play protocol. When I was with basketball, we had a lot of patellar tendonitis that I worked with, but that's obviously a very, very different thing. But as the girls that are signing are slowly coming in, like I'm very close with our athletic trainer and they fill out forms of like all their past injuries. And so already 2 out of 2 girls have had past knee injuries, past ACLs, um, amongst other things. So that makes me extremely nervous. It's scary, man. Like that's one of like the worst injuries, and I'm even seeing, like, this happened years ago to some of them, but one of them we're working on speed, which is stuff that she hasn't done before, like mechanics-wise, and she's nervous, like, she has to re-trust herself,
Mm,
and I feel for her, like, that makes me nervous, and I don't think she'll be the only one that I'll have to deal with feeling that way. I think there's gonna be quite a few girls that have had these past injuries. Um, but as far as return to play protocol for everything, we have different phases that we work. First 2 phases are with the athletic trainer, and then the last 2 phases are with strength and conditioning. We kinda work together. But it's just a lot of progressive overload. I mean, kind of adding some stuff at a low percentage, see how they deal with it, how they recover from it. If it's good, okay, we can add a little bit more, which is what we want. We don't wanna, like, do too much too early and then have to cut back. Um, but yeah, just slowly integrating accelerations, decelerations, change of direction, plyos, just starting off super slow and progressing them back into that. So hopefully we don't have any of those this season. Lord, please no. But if that's the case, they'll be fully taken care of with us.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I think it comes from that is like your off season or preseason is crucial for what happens in season. Like with like American football, we did a lot of posterior train during the off season so that they at least had something to start off with when the season started and those demands started kicking in.
Yeah.
Then again, it's just maintenance. I think maintenance is overlooked. Like you get into season and a lot of players that like just focus on the games and
Mhm.
forget about every other aspect of their body.
Yeah.
So like even just like having like RDLs or leg curls with a Sornex roller, something so minor in the programs, but it just keeps that ticking over.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that's gonna be one of my main, like, we always have a hinge pattern, like, whether it's an RDL. I actually love hip thrusts for female athletes with, just a projection from their hips. But yeah, like, other like, more knee dominant hamstring exercises, like, those are for sure going to be implemented with the girls. And then on top of that, high speed running. I mean, as long as we're consistent with that, preparing their hamstrings, their knees for all that, then yeah, that hopefully we can just maintain as much as possible.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
I think hip thrusters are a very underrated movement,
I
not for
agree.
glutes, not for glutes, but for learning that explosive like so if like you're on a 3 point and you have to snap your hips through, or
Yeah,
like in a and you have to snap, or clean you have to snap, squat you have to snap. Like there's it's so such a versatile movement
mhm.
because of this like TikTok, Instagram like
Yeah,
usage of hip thrusts. I'm just like, damn
it kills
it.
me. It kills me. My dad asked me once too. He's a professor, so he goes to work out at the gym where all the college kids go. And he's like, "What's with all these girls doing hip thrusts? Like, they're putting, like, 300 pounds on it." And I was like, "I don't know, I could totally see it being used for athletes, but they're obsessed with it. I don't know why they're so obsessed with it. They're convinced it's for their glutes,
Like the
but
builder.
I don't know. If it works for them, I just mind my business and let them do it."
Fair, fair. I know, but like I did. I'll admit to this. I have a friend. Her name's Hannah, and she taught me how like this sort of TikTok, Instagram people do their hip thrust. My glutes were burning, by the way. It
Oh,
was
yeah.
fucking tough. It was tough.
Yeah.
I will give you that. But like, I was like, it's just be explosive. Just fucking power through it.
Yes. They don't even know why they're doing that, and I think that's what drives me insane, but
That's the thing as well. Like this TikTok, Instagram, like I love it, and I kind of have to be in that space.
yeah.
But it's just like I hate sometimes seeing some people like big one for me is like going on TikTok and watching people's lives, and they're like talking about calorie counting with random people they don't know.
Oh
I'm
my gosh,
realizing
it kills me.
insane.
It kills
Honestly,
me, and as someone too, like, for the longest, people were like, "You gotta post your workouts, post your TikToks, you get all the" I'm like, "That's not my audience, though. That's not my audience. Those aren't the people I wanna reach." Like, I want to be on a completely different side of it, and that's why I've only recently started posting on Instagram, but I make sure it's, like, educational, and I actually have a degree and a certification to back it up, you know? Like, I'm not just posting my glute workouts, like, drives me insane.
1000%. And I
Yeah.
think that's this is a good point, and I think it gets overlooked quite a lot. Is like the amount of we're kind of speaking about it off camera, but it's how much qualification actually takes for us to get to where we are. And like I don't know your specific path, but like in the UK, you have to get a bachelor's. Some unis ask for masters, and then you have to get accredited, and then you can work
Mm. Yeah.
paid.
Yeah, it depends here. I mean, if you're gonna work in the college realm, you absolutely have to have a bachelor's and CSCS, certified strength and conditioning specialist. And then I think now what's really big now is getting a graduate assistant position. So you'll like intern in a college. They want you to be pursuing or have your CSCS, and then you get a GA position where basically you go to a small school that it's two coaches who have 8 teams each, and they're like, "Well, let's just give the GAs 2 teams and have them do it." But I think it is a huge responsibility, like, that's really where you learn how to coach, like, because now you're given 2 or 3 teams on your own, and you have to actually do that. But then you get your master's paid for. So after what, a year or 2, you have a master's, you have the experience. So then you can go apply to a position in a college, and now those are now your credentials. You have your CSCS, your bachelor's and a master's. Um, and I know a lot more people like I would eventually love to get my master's. I kind of just skipped on that, and I was fortunate enough to get a position without having that. I don't know. I don't think all positions like require it, but I mean it doesn't help. It wouldn't hurt to have it, you know. So it's definitely something I'd want to do, and I do want to get USAW just to have it and
What's that?
CPSS. The USAW, it's just like, weightlifting certification.
Okay.
There's a level 1 and a level 2. I think the level 2 is um, a little more respectable of a
Mhm.
certification, but a lot of coaches have it. And then now working in the soccer realm, a lot of coaches also want their strength and conditioning coaches to be Class A soccer coaches and
Mhm.
have, like, that license as well. So eventually, I mean, especially if I plan on staying with this team or in this field for a little while,
Mhm.
that's definitely something I'd be interested in getting just to have it, you know, but
Yeah, I think in Europe we've got it's UEFA license A, B, and C. If I'm not
mhm.
wrong, I'm guessing it's kind of like that, where it's like more targeted towards football and how you sort of work that industry.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure on all of them either. I know all of our coaches have it, and even our director of player ops has it as well. So I think eventually they'd want me to have that because I mean I'm on the field warm ups.
Mhm.
I typically add in stuff with the ball, so I mean it wouldn't hurt to have that as well. You know, make me a little more well
Yeah.
rounded.
No, I think again, I think all qualifications have a reason for having them, even if it's like just a little bit on a certain topic that you don't know. Like I'm a big fan of just doing random qualification. Just like I've got obese children and how to manage their workouts and their nutrition. It was
Oh
a random
wow,
course I found, and I was
yeah.
like, well, why not?
Why not? Because
Why?
now you're more well versed in that area
Yeah.
of expertise, yeah.
One of the best ones I've heard, it was Seichin, who's been on the podcast before, and he talked about he took acting lessons to be able to switch from like volumes of coaching. So like he was quite naturally introverted, so he took acting classes to sort of amp up his personality and his coaching ability. I found that
Yeah.
fascinating.
Huh,
Different
that's
take.
interesting. I might have to do the opposite. I might gotta tone it down. I'm a little too much sometimes. That's
It's all
crazy.
about intensity. You gotta keep it
Yeah, that's just who I am, and they gotta take it or leave it.
100%.
Yeah.
Female coaches are some of the most, like, I'm going to say in a way, but I don't mean it in a bad way. It's like yous are intense, but like it's because you've got passion and drive behind it as well, which is
Yeah.
like that fireness. I love it.
I
Fucking love
agree.
it.
I That was something like I was again so scared to get into the field at first because I was like, I'm not like a football yeller coach. I'm not about to be like, get on the line. Like that's not me. And I do have a lot of passion and I think I bring a lot of positive energy. And even sometimes I'm like just happy to be there, happy to coach, happy to warm them up. And they're like, why do you have so much energy? And it's like, yeah, it's intensity in a different level. Like it's just good energy, and I feel like they can feel that passion, like you're saying. It's not just, like, yelling just to yell. Like,
Mhm.
there's
100%.
passion behind it. Yeah.
You have to have that intent, and that I always refer to this book, but conscious coaching is like my manual to like how to coach. There's so many different personalities, and you have to know how to coach each one of them. And
Yeah.
like for me, if someone that's like had perhaps a harder life, I need to give them a little break and sort of
Mhm.
just be the nice guy. But if someone's had like a cushy life, I need to feed them a shit sandwich. Like
Yeah,
I
you
need to
gotta
be
be humbled a little bit.
yeah, 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 yeah. I think there's a place and time for every single one of them.
I agree. I like it's actually funny when I was interviewing for, college jobs, I think one of those questions they always ask is, "What would you do if an athlete comes in one day and they're just being super disrespectful in the weight room?" And it's like, well, if I take myself out of it and I take my emotions out of it and I look at this kid who they're a kid, by the way,
Mhm,
they have school, they might have boyfriend stuff, they might have family stuff going on, they might have stuff going on completely unrelated to me, but they're annoyed, they don't wanna be in Lyft, they're projecting it. I'm not gonna take it as disrespect. Like, yes, there's a time and place we don't act that way, but at the same time, I'm gonna give them some grace, and I'm gonna have a conversation with them and be like, "What's up? Like, are you good? Something's off here." And I think that goes such a long way than just yelling at a kid because they're disrespectful. Like, I think we have to understand them a little bit, and because, like you said, everyone's different, and one person acting that way is gonna be so different from a different kid acting that way. There's different people with
100%.
different experiences, yeah.
Like my favorite is a fist bump. You can tell a lot by just like a fist bump, and like I've seen this over and over. Like sometimes kids just like give you like a half-assed fist bump, like
Hand
fuck
hand
with
not
you.
even closed. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Let's
Yeah,
talk. And then
like,
I go, I've
read
had a shit day at work. I was like, cool, let's talk about it.
right. Yeah, that's all it takes, and sometimes a conversation like that, you understand them a little bit, that builds trust, it builds
Mhm,
buy-in. Just someone caring about them goes a long way.
100%. What's the processes that you're taking to ensure that as soon as everyone is coming in, you start that culture and you start building that process with them?
Yeah, I'm a little nervous, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know any of these girls coming in, don't know anything about their past. And I think there might be a little bit of an ego, like everyone's kind of competing with each other. But that's one thing that my head coach and I is we're huge on the culture, on the leadership, on the standards that we're going to have throughout. And from day one, like there are going to be standards in our weight room. There are going to be standards when it comes to how we share a facility with the boys. We're not going to leave it trashed. We're going to clean up after
Mm,
ourselves. We're not going to have people clean up after us. But yeah, just beyond that, not only am I gonna stand my ground, stand on business day one, I can't just be fun coach all the time, but I do wanna bring a positive energy to everyone. I think that's, like, one of my strong suits, and if day one, everyone's feeling a little awkward, they don't know each other, if I can bring some positive energy and hopefully start building that in our
mm.
culture, then, um, I don't know, hopefully it'll go a long way, but we shall see. I think it'll be a lot of different personalities, a lot of different people on different levels. Um,
Especially
I
if you've had like players going international and then coming back and then doing little bits and bobs straight from college and stuff.
Yeah, it's gonna be so different. And I think it's also weird being 26 because there's girls who are 30, there's girls who are 28, there's girls who are 26. And what I don't want is them to think that I'm like their friend, that I'm
Mm,
here, just as their friend. Like, nope, I'm on coaching staff, but we can still have a good relationship and we can still build a good culture. I think you'll maybe have a few leaders that are gonna try and lead that, hopefully in a positive way. Um, but yeah, I think it'll be a process that maybe I'm going into it thinking I'm gonna do these things, and then day 1, I meet everyone, and I'm like, "Whoa, this may not be the approach that I can take." So, I don't know, I
yeah,
may have to adjust on the fly how I approach things. I think that's huge.
I think that's the key though, is like going into it, just having that first day and just being like, okay, this is where we are. How does that measure up to what I expected? And let's try and figure out a way through it. One of the
Yeah,
best things I saw, and that was when I was with the SRU development squads, sorry, the Scottish Rugby Union squad, and the coach had an open door policy, which pretty much meant if that door was open, like any athlete, any player can go in and just like talk about their day, talk about anything, and
yeah,
that was a good way to build that trust with the coaches to be just like, I'm not just a coach, like I'm here for you too. I
yeah,
think like that really shaped how I also approached athletes from then on, because
mhm.
like I've always opened that door and been like, look, if anything's happening in your life right now that you kind of want to just like talk about, or you want to talk about uni, college, whatever it is, like what you've just said, is just having that approach where straight off the bat, yes, you're fun coach, yes, you're there to have a great time, but let's also know when to play and when to like be serious about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like, building trust with them is weird too, 'cause everyone's new. It's a new league, it's a new team, so it's gonna be a little difficult, and I just wanna open conversation to a lot of people, straight off the bat, I'm not just gonna wait for them to come to me, like, kinda get to know them. My biggest thing is getting to know, like, who are they as a person, not just an
Mm,
athlete, you know? Like, I know these athletes have been athletes their whole entire life. That's what they're introduced as, that's what they tell people they are. And just getting to know them as people, like, who are you as a person? Do you have siblings? What do you like to do for fun? What kind of music do you listen to? Those like my favorite things to get to know them, and it opens up conversations in other ways. And then 3, 4 weeks go on, and you've just slowly built trust with them little by doing stuff like that. And then, if they're off one day, or you just wanna check in and you're like, "How's your mental? Like, how are you doing? How's your head?" This is gonna be new for everyone, it's gonna be rough. And I think just, yeah, checking in on them in that way, like, people don't always ask you that, like,
mm.
"How are you doing mentally?" Like, "Are you okay?" People don't always
Yeah.
ask that. But I do think
What's
too,
your
like,
sorry?
what were you saying? I was just saying
No,
off
no,
the
you're
bat,
good.
like, you can't really ask someone like, "Hey, how's your mental?" if I don't know them. Like, we'll
Mhm.
build that trust and then hopefully get to that point. So, that's the approach I try to take with
Yeah.
all my athletes, yeah.
What's your take on sort of the mentality and the approach that athletes take to get into their zones, and how are you expecting to build that trust with them for them to be open?
Yeah, it's weird because it's different for everyone. Like, even when I watch the guys on game days, they all have different ways of doing it. Some of them like to really lock in and headphones in, not speak to anyone, and some of them like to have a little fun and joke around. And so one thing we do have sports psychologists, which I love,
Mm,
and it's one thing that we've talked to them about of like, "Hey, let's kind of talk to everyone before game day, figure out what's your game day routine look like? How do you wanna be talked to? Do you wanna be off by yourself?" And then that way we can get to understand them a little better so that when game day does come, if, like, let's say they're wanting to have a chat and have fun, but I'm just ignoring them because I think they want to lock
mhm,
in. Like, I can't assume for them and they can't assume for me. So we need to have that open communication of what do you like, what do you not like? And I will respect that. I'll respect
mhm.
whatever you wish.
Yeah, I've developed this saying is you don't know what you know until you know. And
Yes,
it's
I
just
love
like
that.
so you just have to ask. Like
Yeah.
I love to ask questions to make sure that the way I approach them is how they like to be approached.
Mhm.
Like I know with some athletes, like there's one athlete that like he liked to talk shit, and I mean like he would be like hyping himself up, like "Let's go! Did you see that?" And I was like, "Okay." And like this came from a process of like trial and error. But like he did that to me, and he kind of like chest bumped me, and I was like, "Sick! My granny can do that. She's dead."
Yeah.
So he burst out laughing, and I was like, "Okay,
Yeah,
I've got
he
you." So
thrives
like
off
from then
that.
on, yeah. So like from then
Yeah,
on, we were just like, yeah, like I know exactly how to push you, and I'm going to make sure I annoy you as much as I can, so I can get the
exactly.
best out of you.
Yes, that's a part too, is, like, on the weight room side, like, not every athlete loves a weight room. Like, that's something as strength coaches, like, we have to accept. They don't love the weight room like we do, and we can't force them to love the weight room, but, like, you can see some of the ones that you can talk shit with and have fun with, and then some that they don't wanna be there. They really just don't wanna be
100%.
there. They wanna get it done and get out of there. They don't wanna joke. They don't wanna laugh. They don't wanna talk shit with you. And yeah, like having to take a different approach with them too is it's a weird experience, you know?
Yeah, there's also those athletes that love to question why we're doing something,
Oh,
and I
yeah.
think they're just as important. And like
Oh,
this
yeah.
also takes a little bit of you having to tame your ego a little bit. And like I've
Yeah.
definitely had this, and athletes question like, "Why are we doing this specific movement? Like we don't do this out in the field." And I'm like, "Well, let's break down the movement and
Mhm.
see where it can potentially apply in the field." I think it was the bench press, like and these guys are like O line, D line. So like a lot of what they do is push. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, let's take bench press. What it's this movement, right? Like, yeah,
Horizontal push, yeah.
yeah. So like, do you do that in the field? I was like, oh yeah, I do. Well, there
Yeah.
we go. But like,
Right.
I like getting questioned as well because it. I don't I don't know if this is just my take, but like I don't see it as like a they're questioning me. I take it as a an opportunity for me to educate them on potentially why that's important. I
Yeah.
think that that's a really good way to look at it because then you're also working out your justification behind the exercise. Like if
Yeah.
you can explain it to them and it makes sense, you're not. I refer it to as like you don't throw shit at the wall and see what sticks.
Right.
Like this program has to mean something. If they're
Yeah.
doing it, it has to mean something.
I totally agree. That's in my internship program, like, one of the things they taught us was, like, have a reason for everything. And I've almost found myself now to where I am explaining something, like, demoing something that we're doing, and I'll throw in a little of, like, this is why we're doing it. But I also love the people that ask, like, "Hey, why are we doing this? Like, how is this gonna make me a better soccer player?" Because I know that was me in the weight room, you know? And it's almost like they like it a little bit more. Like, the
Mm,
ones who don't like it, they don't care. They don't care to know. They're just doing what you tell them to do. But I think the ones who are a little curious, like, they actually enjoy it a little bit more than they think they do or they say they do. And yeah, I just again, take it as an opportunity, like you said, to talk yourself and your reason for programming and educate them a little bit.
100%. I like to think, and this was said to me by one of my lecturers, and it's we're in this industry or in this profession because we've had a good experience that's good enough for us to like really want to pursue it. There is some that's the opposite, whereas like they had such a shit experience from it that they want to change it. So they want to
Yeah.
be the complete opposite. But like this takes me back to when I started S&C and like my coach, the year after like 1 year in, he was like, here's my process. And I was 14 at the time. Here's my process. Build yourself a power program. I was like, okay, what
Yeah.
exercises? And he was like,
Yeah.
think about it and go. So like that was my first program. It was horrible. I think I
Yeah.
still have it. It was garbage,
Yeah.
but it got me to think about like what movements go where and why use them.
Yeah. No, we had to do that as well. Like, the first program I wrote was god awful, and I look back and I'm like, "This is this is trash. But we had to present it and have a reasoning for it. And they were like, you know what? This wasn't great, but you were confident and you had reasons. So it could work. Like you could make it work if you wanted to. And I was like,
And
nope, it's this is definitely trash. But but as I've always taken that with me. As long as I have a reason for something, then it could work.
yeah, this is why I love university because like no matter how wrong an exercise can be in it, if you justify it the right way, you will pass.
Oh
Like
yeah.
my perfect example is like we had to build this 6 week program, and I put bicep curls in for every single day. But I explained in the sense that I wanted to create buy-in with my athlete because he was a 17-year-old hockey player. So I was like,
Yeah.
for him to trust me, I need to throw him something. And like my
Yeah.
coach ate that up, and I was like, yes.
Yeah, see, like, it can work. It can absolutely work. It's funny.
No, so yeah, it's just your approach and justifications. I think that's a good exercise no matter what stage of your career you are. Like I've definitely like asked head coaches like why is that there? Is that and then I gave them my thought process behind it and they were like actually I've got a slightly different take, but that's a good point too.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just makes you so much like such a better coach is like having that justification because I've definitely seen coaches that just like throw shit at the
Yeah.
wall, see if it sticks.
It's also too, like, I think in the culture that we're in with Instagram and TikTok, and you see so much crazy stuff, from, like, private contractors, and so professional athletes and when they have the money to go get that, they're like, "Why are you having me squat when this person's saying squats are actually terrible for you?" And, like, that's
Mhm,
also something where it's like, science is not black and white. There's many different scenarios where this may work and this might not work, like and so I think having that too, because I mean, people don't they don't always buy into a pretty basic plan. But it's like,
mhm,
okay, go try the Bosu ball squat, throw in something. I don't know, like the random stuff that people do on IG that they just want to do it because it looks cool. But it's like, I mean, we gotta talk science here. Like,
mhm.
it could work, I guess, if he has a justification for it, it could work. But science is not black and white. Like, there's reasons for a lot of stuff.
I know what coach you're talking about, and I love talking shit about this guy. We'll not mention his name here, but I
Oh,
love talking shit.
oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But what do I know? What do
Um,
I know?
I mean, I think you know a lot better.
I'd like to think I do too, but Lord.
What's your approach to speed development, and how are you sort of programming that for your athletes?
Yeah, so I love speed with soccer athletes. So I worked with Les Spellman I've known him for a couple years now. My dog, shout out Les. And so I learned a ton from him when it comes to speed. And so the girls that I have signed now, we've been working a ton on mechanics and acceleration and now sprinkling in some max velocity as we're getting closer to them starting. And it's just crazy like how much they're so backside um, and they don't have any of the motions from their hips, like, there's no front side mechanics whatsoever when it comes to soccer players, and that's something where, like, I was that way for so long, and I've completely transformed my mechanics and acceleration and become a better athlete, and I think Oscar touched on this in the last one of just how often soccer athletes accelerate in a match, and how important that is. But beyond that, high speed running as well, like we need to hit those qualities. So the way that I approach that once we hit in season is going to be through GPS. So the coach that I work for, he actually has a different type of periodization when it comes to his training. We do a lot of like we do a couple weeks of big sided, then we do a couple weeks going a little smaller and then smaller down to 4v4. So, what I had to do is take what he gave me for a 6 weeks plan and think, okay, well, if we're going big sided, we're not getting as many collisions, as many change of direction. It's not as intense as we're getting there. So, what we need to do is the opposite. We need to train that. Whereas small-sided, we're not opening up, we're not getting that high speed running, so we need to train that. So the way I'm looking at it is, throughout the week, we kind of looked at it as if we played a game every week. And so we went, okay, these are the days that will vary our volume and intensity. And then on certain days, trying to incorporate more change of direction qualities, deceleration qualities, just in the warm up, throwing them in there when we can, if they're not going to get as much on the field, and then vice versa. If they're getting too much of that and we need to open them up and get more higher sprints, then one thing that I loved, the coach I worked for, Ian Cossack, with the men's side, he would throw in a block about halfway through the training, and we just opened them up for a 50, 60-yard sprint, and we're like, "Okay, go hit 2 of them, and then you're back into training." So we're still hitting our high speed running that we need to hit even while they're practicing, you know? And so it's training those qualities and getting that max velocity, and then we can look later at GPS like, "Okay, this is the speeds that they hit. This is, what percentage of their max velocity that they hit. We wanna hit about sub max," whatever. And so, yeah, just trying to sprinkle that in throughout training sessions, whether it's warm up or whether it's after the first or second block, almost to a point of like they don't even realize that we just did it,
Mm.
but we're doing that to keep training those qualities and to not lose our speed.
Yeah, so are you essentially saying that you're sort of flipping what the main program is? So like on the bigger ones, you're focusing on shorter, and then as it gets smaller and smaller, you're elongating those runs.
Yeah, yeah. So the periodization tactic that our head coach is going, we'll for 2 weeks we'll go just 11v11s, and I guess
Hmm.
we'll do like set pieces, some walkthroughs, playing bigger sided, stretching it out. So more than likely, especially Oscar talked on this too, our wingers are going to be getting those runs there, those longer runs, whereas they're not really getting the change of direction that we would get when they play 4v4 in a small-sided in a smaller game. So we're kind of training those qualities then because they're getting their high speed running and then vice
Hmm.
versa. Yeah. Sorry.
Speed fascinates me, and me and Oscar kind of spoke about it. It's that vertical and horizontal ways of pushing and getting that speed work in when there's so many different factors. And I loved his take on it because he just let them run as they run, and then he would
Mhm.
correct if absolutely necessary, but he would just let them run and then implement what they needed on it. Do you have a similar take? Is there anything that you do differently?
Yeah, I like to sprinkle in mechanics in like the warm up. So if I can throw in some switches, some marches, um, some stuff like that in the warm up, and then they're kind of working on those mechanics without even realizing it. We do a
Mm,
lot of A series as well. Just to me, I think that's so important for them. Like, obviously, yeah, you've been running like this your entire life. It's pretty fast. It's working. Like, cool. But I think we could make it a little better, you know? We could just add in those little things to make it better. And so the girls that I have now, weekly we get out on the field and do speed stuff, and we take a lot of time in doing mechanics and practicing through that. They've never done that before. These girls are
mm,
24 and they've never done it before. And it may not make a difference. And I tell them too, it may not make a difference right now. You actually might see a little bit of a decrease because you're
decrease.
relearning how to run, but then I promise we're gonna get better after this. And so, yeah, just trying to get them thinking about how
Mhm.
their body actually moves when they're sprinting, and trying to sprinkle in those mechanics when I can, even if it's in a warm up, a couple switches, a couple marches when we can, then hopefully, I don't know, it may not help, but yeah, I'm gonna try it.
I'm not trying to make this like a girl vs boy type thing, but do you think that's perhaps because of the lack of funding in female sports that they're not they've not had that programmed in as earlier as boys have?
I don't know, cause even on the men's side, we see a few of them. There's maybe a couple that have, like, a little bit of a track background where they have superb form, but a lot of them are so backsided where, like, we've had to set up wickets and stuff to kind of force them into that, front side mechanics and force their hips into the right flexion. I just think it's a soccer thing, honestly,
Yeah.
and something I've seen with women too, and not necessarily with the guys, I've seen this more in some of the younger girls, is their arms are so weird when they're running. Like, I've trained some youth athletes with speed, and they're so stiff here because they don't use their arms when they
Mhm.
play. And so I'm like, yeah, maybe it's not gonna change much for you what you think. It's not gonna change much to change your, torso, like, change your arm positioning, but I think it absolutely helps. I just don't think they've ever been educated on it. I don't think there's a lot of, like, soccer coaches, even into the college level, that know how important it is or even recognize that they're running wrong, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Like, I'm guessing it's the same as Europe, where it's quite prevalent that soccer athletes haven't had real S&C, and it's still a little bit like, does it work? Does it not for football athletes? And this more comes from like the head coaches and what their thoughts are on it. Like I've
Yeah.
spoke to Division One, like Premier League, S&C coaches, and like they've said the same thing. Is like it's quite hard to get S&C into a team where it's just like no one knows what it is, and I think
Yeah,
it is
they're
a
just
soccer.
so soccer based. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
like to a
and
certain
it's
extent, I get it. Sorry.
No, I was saying it's just funny, like, on the basketball side, people love to say that hoopers don't like to lift, but honestly, like, I've had a lot of they're built a little differently, it may not look
Mhm.
great, but I've had more buy-in from them, like, the coaches want them to lift, but on the soccer side, it's a lot more of like, "Yeah, we don't need to do that, we need to be on the field, we need to play more soccer," which
Mhm.
I think I do think it's just a football thing in
Yeah.
general.
On your running mechanics and torso movement, I once coached a soccer athlete. His arms moved the same as his legs. So like right leg would go
Oh.
forward, right arm would go forward.
Oh
And I stopped.
god.
I was like, "Tell me you're joking." And he's like,
Like,
"What?" He's like, "You're
have
running. Is that how you run?" And he was like, "Yeah. What's wrong with it?" And I was like, "How do I teach him to do the opposite?"
Yeah,
So left arm goes, right leg goes. And I was
yeah,
like, "This is we just saw." Like I just let him run for a while and just watched. I was like just taking it in,
that's
and I was like,
painful.
"Okay, this is what we're working with. Let's try and
Yeah,
switch." And like to get him to switch, difficult.
yeah, especially when they've been doing that their whole life and that just feels normal to them, it's like doing what's actually right feels wrong because it's
Mhm.
just not his normal. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like again, S&C is so wild. Like the thing I love about it as well is like people don't consider on field S&C to be a thing. Like you've got your speed development, you've got your change of directions,
Oh,
you've got
yeah,
your like braking mechanics, you've got like there's so much as well that goes into it. Like you can even program power into those running mechanics. You can go mad ball throws. You can like there's such a wide thing. Like you can do so much. That's just
yeah,
like well, you're saying you can do it in the weight room and outside. And it's like, yeah,
right. Yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun, I think.
100%. Like I geek out every single time I speak to someone, and like I love conversations. And I love doing this podcast because like every day is just like me talking S&C to someone else.
Yes,
Like
I love it.
this is
It's nice
perhaps
to
what.
have It's nice to have
Sorry.
people to, like if I talk to my parents about it, I'm like, they don't care. My friends don't really care. It's like, I love talking to people that get it and they enjoy
Mhm.
it just as much as I do.
Yeah, big shout out to Kev Green, and he put it the best way. He was like, honestly, if my friends speak to me, or if anyone speaks to me, they think I'm boring as fuck because
Yeah,
all I speak about is strength and conditioning
I
and just like being
know.
in the weight room. And like that resonates so well with me because like I'm the exact same. Like I just love talking about S&C.
I do.
If
I
you get
do
me
love
going on
it
S&C, I can go on for it years.
forever. That's something like recently I've tried to almost like tone myself down a little bit because I'm like, I need to remember that I'm a person outside of being a coach, and I
Mm,
have hobbies and a personality outside of being a coach, and I think, like, recently, it's really hit home for me. I've talked to a lot of coaches who are in their, like, 30s, 40s, and they're just now being like Oh, yes, I want to enjoy my time outside of being a coach because they've just burnt themselves out for
Mhm,
years of just being S&C, and I don't wanna get to that point. I wanna be able to enjoy it and love it and still love it outside of here, but still be Mesa, and not just coach Mesa. I wanna be Mesa as well. Like, I have my own hobbies and personalities, and I do
100%.
find myself thinking and talking about it way too much, and I'm like, "Let me go read a book that has nothing to do with S&C and just be me for a second."
Mm, 100%. So it was my birthday a couple days ago, and
Ah,
I
happy birthday.
so thank you. And I've got a Switch. I love a Switch.
Oh, yeah.
So I just play like I got a new game for it, and I just like I've just been like on my off time. I've just been playing, like completely
Yeah.
switching off. Or like lunch times, I'm a little bit free on my lunchtime, so like I'll go eat my lunch by the beach because like I live close to the beach, so like
Yeah.
just chill. So I completely get it. Like I do.
Yeah.
Like
It's little
you
stuff
have
like
to switch
that.
off.
You have to, and I think that's big in taking it to, like, our athletes too, especially at the level that I'm now at, is, like, sometimes I ask them the question, I'm like, "What do you guys do for fun? Like, what do you do?" I used to hate that question,
Mhm.
but because I used to be like, "What do you mean? Like, work out? I like to work out. Like, that's what I like to do. I like to read." And I'm like, "No, what do I like to do for fun?" And same when you ask your athletes that, it's like, we are still people outside of being
Mhm.
a coach. Like, we need to be that sometimes.
Yeah. Like this is a perfect example. I was once walking around Seattle and a couple of players like clocked me. They drove past me and honked. Like no one knows me in Seattle. Like I'm from the
Yeah,
UK. So like
yeah.
I was like, what the fuck is going on? And they were like, "Hi coach." I was like, "You have a life?" I was like, "Apparently."
Yeah, like, it's almost shocking to them. But that's, like, one thing where I've always made it a point to still have a personality as a coach, like,
Mm,
and obviously being professional and knowing when to turn it off and when to turn it on, but, like, yeah, I like to listen to NBA YoungBoy. Yeah, I have tattoos, and I like to get cute and dress up, and I like clothes, and I like reading other stuff other than research, like, I always like to have a personality when I'm a coach to let them know that, like, "Hey, I'm also a
I'm a
person,
human.
and I'm not just a robot," like, I think that's huge, like, human connection is so important in all forms, and when we can even connect like that and not just be player coach robots,
Mhm.
I think that's important.
The best thing I think of that is like, so I love making mistakes when I'm like coaching because it gets me the opportunity to be like, I am also a human, and like
Right.
just up to and just be like, hey guys, I fucked up here. This is
Yeah,
completely me. That's my bad. Let's start from the beginning. This is what we're supposed to be doing.
yeah, they respect that too.
Mm,
I think that's huge.
100%. What's your favorite thing about GPS units and how you use them? Because I like getting people's opinion on this.
Yeah, my favorite thing is how I mean, we look at acute chronic ratios, but when we
Mm,
go down to acute of like the week leading up to a game, how we can monitor our workload throughout and how we can vary the volume and intensity and then do the same in the weight room as well so that they can be fully prepared. I think it's so fun to me and it's so cool to look at like, okay, Monday, this is how we're going to approach it. Tuesday, we're going to ramp it up a little. Wednesday, probably going to be our hardest session. Thursday, we back down. Friday, super intense, and then we play. And
mm,
seeing how like, even the athletes can feel it. Like, on Wednesday, they're like, "Dude, I'm gassed." I'm like, "I know, but tomorrow we're gonna cut back a little bit. Like, just trust the plan." And then they always do, and they feel good. And that's my favorite way in using it is being able to plan the week out and then
mhm,
plan the month out, and then sit with the coaches and be like, "Okay, this is what we're gonna do." I'm, like, super structured and organized, and I hate coming into a practice and not knowing what we're doing or what to expect. So if we can plan the whole week out and we're saying, okay, game day's on Saturday, this is what we're looking at for each day, and then what do I need to put in or take out on these certain days? That's my favorite way to use the GPS and then watch the trends throughout the week and then as we approach game week. That's my favorite way to look at it.
yes. So you're like very much program your Angeli program based on GPS data as well.
Yeah, it's always obviously gonna depend on practices and, like, with the guys, sometimes we have plenty of time to change stuff throughout the week, and then sometimes we have a game, like, back to back, or we have a lot of traveling, and so then we gotta change it again. But, yeah, definitely when we're coming off a game, it's more recovery, super low volume, and then we ramp up the volume and intensity middle of the week, and then we cut
Mm,
down on the volume and ramp up the intensity before game day. And then being able to match that in the weight room, like, oh, that's just so cool to me. I love it.
100%. Do you look much at doing that for like bigger games compared to smaller games?
Yeah, that's one thing that I'm interested to look at as we approach our season,
Mm,
especially, like, I think too there might be some trial and error in seeing, like, how everyone takes to the first couple times of doing this process, and then, like, okay, if they aren't looking super ready by game day or they're not feeling ready, let's say they don't recover well, their wellness surveys aren't looking good, their stats aren't looking good as far as vol, counter movement jumps and readiness, then like, okay, maybe we need to approach this in a different way for the next game. And if we have a bigger game coming up, maybe we need to deload a little bit
mm,
or look at it in a different way, and then also on top of that, using it for girls that don't play or girls that get low minutes. Like, okay, well, we need to make sure that they're matching that demand as best as they can, as close to game day as possible, so that they can recover and be ready throughout this next week, just in case they have to play more minutes next week. Um, so yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I'm not entirely sure how it's gonna look when we come to season, and I don't think we even know our opponents yet since it's a new league that we're unsure of who we're playing and who's on their team. So it'll be interesting. I think we might have some times where we might mess up a little bit and we might have to change it the next week, but it'll be interesting to look at those trends and see what we can fix from there.
100%. Is player readiness something that you look at like pretty regularly, like day to day, or is it something that you like do at the start of the week and see how they get on?
Yeah, so we use, wellness surveys with the guys, and that's absolutely something I'll be using with the women as well. Um, and so that gives us an insight day to day of like, okay, they didn't sleep very well, maybe they're coming on with a cold, maybe they are having a bad mental day. But then we also test jumps. So for the guys, they do it match day -2, and then they do match day +2. So they don't jump
Mm,
every day. And so I've talked to a couple people about this, and I'm interested to do some research on this as well. It's a USL rule that we can't see the players the day after a game. So our reasoning for the guys doing it match day plus and -2 is because we can't do +1 because we can't see them. We can't require them to come in. Um, but I kind of like the +2 because we're looking more at how they recovered rather than how fatigued they were. Like, obviously, we know they're gonna be fatigued after a game. I think their jumps would tell us that, like, we can infer that, and our jumps would tell us that. But seeing how well they recover, like, some guys, they come in a little groggy, and they're like, "Oh, I'm not gonna jump very well," and then they jump, like, the best they
mm,
have. And it's like, "Okay, maybe you whatever you did for recovery really worked." Like, maybe that was good. So that's also something I wanna look in because our coach and I as well are super big on, yoga and active recovery and getting them moving the day after a game. So if we're able to do that with the women, maybe looking at what we do the day after a game, what type of recovery we do, and how they recover from that and how ready they are match day +2.
yeah,
So,
I would recommend you look at Caroline Gagne's page. She
okay.
is amazing. I'll put that up.
Yeah.
She was with me at UW, and she did the yoga side. So she mixes
Mm.
like yoga and whatever sport,
Oh, nice.
and she's got
Oh,
like
yeah.
loads of videos for that as well.
Awesome.
I love Caroline. She is one of the best people to like pick their brains on
Awesome.
in
I'll definitely have to
in
connect with her.
recovery stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll send you her stuff as well.
Super cool.
But she is awesome. Like she is awesome because
Nice.
like she does exactly that. As like Luke said, the yoga side, and how to incorporate that into sports.
Yeah, and that's something too where, like, if we're in season all year round and when we're traveling, like, that is something that I would love to incorporate with them, and just after we've been on a flight
Mhm.
across the country, like, let's get in and move a little bit, do some yoga, so yeah, that's something I'm really wanting to incorporate with them this year. That's awesome.
Someone else. So I had Ali Vanderberg on my podcast. She was the nutritionist at UW. She's now the
Okay.
nutritionist at Alabama when they switched over. Um, and she was speaking about like hydration through traveling, plane or bus,
Mm,
whatever. Like you essentially have to drink 2 times what you do on land just to keep up the hydration levels. And like that to me was wild to find out. I was like,
yeah.
you lose so much water during a flight that you have to replenish even more.
Yeah, that's actually extremely useful to know. That's crazy. And that's a part, like you said earlier, you touched on about, like, athletes at this level having to do all of the things and not just play your sport, like, we have to be on it when it comes to all other aspects because it really plays such a role in how you
100%.
perform.
And like
Yeah.
that's the thing, like people don't like when people are criticizing athletes, they don't think about like all these nitty gritty things that they go through. Is like first of all, not only is he playing at the elite level, but something as little as like not having enough water during this flight can throw.
Yeah, and then that's your money on the line, like, that's your
Mhm.
job, and people don't really take that into account, or I don't think people give athletes enough grace sometimes. They're like, What's wrong with you? Why are you playing like crap?" It's like, dude, we just traveled 12 hours. Like, you try that and then try to go play. Like, let's give them a little bit of grace. That's a lot to keep track of too when you have so much in your mind going on and other factors, boyfriends, girlfriends, family stuff, and you got to remember to drink water. Like, that's just exhausting. Like, I don't want to remember all these things. Like, gotta give them some grace because it is hard.
Like I've spoke a lot with the UFC Performance Institute, and their their process is so dialed in with like because they've got athletes coming in from every direction. They hold such a tight knit group that no matter what comes up, they'll send them to that team's like straight away. So like if the S&C coaches notice that they're a little bit sore, like more than just DOMs, they'll send them to the physio straight away. If they're
Oh yeah,
like feeling a bit like something with their stomach or something with their nutrition isn't adding up, like they'll send them straight to the nutritionist. And I think that's such a key thing between teams is like everyone has to be on the same communication level and like
oh
not
yeah.
be scared to be like, oh, you actually just go straight to that person like right now.
Yeah, I went to a conference not too long ago and one of the coaches spoke on that about like everyone in your team has to be aligned. Like you said, I can't as an S&C coach, I don't know everything. If there's something that I don't know, I will find someone that knows the answer for you that is more well versed in that area. And I will say that's one thing I love about working on the team level over like the private level is when I see these kids once a week on the private level and I don't know what their sport coaches are telling them. I don't know what they now have, like, weightlifting in school, so I'm like, I don't know what they're telling them, and they come to me. I don't know if they see a doctor. I don't know if they see a trainer, and there's no communication, whereas, like, I can walk into our athletic trainer's room, I can walk into our team doctor's room, I can walk into the sport psychologist's room, the coaches, and if we are all in connection and constantly communicating about those things. Like it's all for the athletes. Like we're here to make
Mhm.
the athletes better. And if all of us can come together and be in alignment about that, like that's best, honestly.
100%. I agree. Like, and
Yeah.
like anytime I work with a team, I'm always very straight up with the coach. I'm like, this for this to work the best, me and you have to communicate as much as possible. Like if I can see a player's lacking, I'm going to tell you straight away. And like
Yeah.
vice versa, if I will tell you all the data and all the information I have on the player so you can make the best informed decisions. That from then on is out of my hands if they apply or not.
Mhm.
But you kind of have to be like, this is what's happening in the gym. This is what's happening on the field. Can we make the adequate changes for that player not to suffer injuries or not to go through fatigue, burnout, all that stuff?
Yeah. No, that's like I think when picking a job, I mean, people always say like you interview for a job, but you almost have to interview your coaches as well, like and figure out what their style is, what their leadership type is. And to me, like you said, like, that communication is huge, and I love being an S&C coach, but one thing I love about my head coach is he was like, "No, we consider you an assistant coach. You are part of our coaching staff, and we shouldn't just be separate, like, we're constantly together."
Nice.
And we haven't even begun training yet, and I talk to him almost every day because we're just constantly in communication about all these things, and I think that is essential to have coaches that think that way as well. If you have a coach that's like, "Ah, just stick to the weight room," that's not gonna work for me. Like,
Mhm.
that's just not gonna work for me at all, and it might work for other people, but I think that's where, like, you have to figure out too where you fit the best with some people because communication to me is everything.
100%. Especially when like people's health is on the line. Not only are
Yeah.
they athletes, but, like they're relying that's their work, that is their job.
Exactly, and if they don't have
So
that, they're not getting paid. Also, when you get to the pro level, like, you have other factors too. You have owners who want to make
mhm,
these decisions, and if their best player is injured, they're not mad at the player, they're mad at us. What are we doing wrong? Like, we're losing the club money. We're losing this athlete money, we're losing them money. Like, there's a lot of factors that play into it, and it's not just, "Oh, yeah, go see the trainer." Like, no, all of us have to be on top of it to make sure that the athletes are getting what they need so that the whole club is getting what they need. Like, there's a lot that goes into it.
100%. The thing that always shocks me the most is like how the amount of type A coaches there is and how we aren't able to navigate that.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard being I think too being like a female, and it's scary
Mm,
being around other coaches like that because I mean, you want your person I think a lot of people want like their personality to shine the most, or they want to be the head honcho, and it's like we forget that this is about the athletes. This is not about me. This is about the athletes. We need to take care of the athletes. I don't care if you want all the praise and the flowers. I don't care. I just want to make sure the athletes are good. And yeah, it is difficult dealing with coaches like that sometimes when they're not
the best
thinking that
example
way.
is like so Coach Mac has like so he's got like these team building workshops during every like major events like 4th of July, Valentine's Day, Easter. Like he's got like specific workouts he does for that. Nothing screamed like we are all type A's more than like us all in a group picking one drill apart.
Yeah.
And then we just like went around in a circle. Was like, oh yeah, this is not going to work because of this. This isn't going to work because of that. This is what I would do. This is what I would do. No, this is what
Yeah.
I would do. And like we just go back and forward. Like Coach Mark ultimately was like, "This is how we're doing it. I'm the head coach." We're like,
Right. Yeah.
it's just like having that confidence to be like, okay, there's a lot of voices. Let's tune them all out and just like do what's best for the athletes because that's what's going to work.
Exactly. Exactly.
What's your favorite go-to story or phrase to dial your athletes in? Every coach has one, and I want yours.
Lock in. Lock
Mm,
in. Lock in, and here we go. Every time we start practice, here we go, on the line, and lock in. If especially if they're
mm,
bullshitting, and I'm like, "Y'all, we need to lock in." Like, "You are not focused, I need you to lock in." That's my
nice,
go-to every time for sure. Lock in.
nice, I love it. I want to start like a little thing where I get every coaches to tell me theirs because I find this very fascinating. So like mine's is shy boys don't get sweets. And that just means like if you want something, fucking go and get it. No one's going
Yeah,
to give it to you, so let's fucking go.
let's go. I don't have anything that exciting. Mine is just like,
Lock-in's good though.
"Let's lock
Lock-in is
in.
good because it's like that little
Let's
flip
fucking
of the
lock
switch.
in." Right, yeah, because we could be having fun, but okay, we need
Mhm.
to lock in, and you can say that in many different tones. You can say it louder, you can say it quieter, but it all means one thing, we need to lock in. That's it.
Mm, love it. What's your PR song?
Oh, man. See, this is where when I was interviewing for one of the small schools I was at, they asked me this, and I said, "Anything NBA YoungBoy. Anything NBA YoungBoy," but I'm not gonna lie, recently, I've been into, like, some old school rap, and which I can't even like, nothing even crazy, like some Jeezy, like,
Mm,
anything that's gonna give me super hype. Waka Flocka, I'll go for
nice.
it every
Are
time,
you
yeah.
more East Coast or West Coast?
Um, I'm from the West Coast originally, so I like to think that, I listen to some West Coast music, but maybe like some old school rap because my dad's from the Bay, so I grew
Mm,
up on some Too Short and some old school West Coast rap, but I listen to a lot of, like, Atlanta rap too, Detroit
okay,
rap. Yeah, can't lie,
nice.
I do.
We previously spoke about a player that we both know, and all he listens to is like artists from Florida. Like
Oh, yeah.
I respect it a lot, but like I was like, because like I like to ask athletes like their favorite music, because like I'll listen to it and then we can connect there too. Like I don't
Yeah,
mind me and them there, and I was just like, this is going to be a challenge because like not only do I have to listen like to find these artists, because he was like they're very small, like you will not find them. I was
really?
like I found a
That's
couple, and I was
funny.
like, so like me and him just like started vibing on that.
Oh,
But
that's
like
awesome.
it's just like I love getting people's music tastes, and like I've had some like what was it? It was some like boy band that a coach said, and I was like, no danger. Is that what you listen to for a PR song?
Like, no way. I think it's funny, like, I always feel so out of place sometimes in the S&C world, like, not only as a female, but I don't know, sometimes I just feel like it's not really my place, but I've always said I'm going to be myself regardless. I don't fit in with a lot of people, but I'm gonna be myself. And all the coaches that I worked with, after they had interviewed me that or asked me that in the interview, we're all hitting PR one day and they put on some like rock, like some heavy metal. And I was like, God, no. And they were like, well, you like NBA Youngboy. And I was like, yeah, that you should have known I was going to be the way that I am because of that. I can do anything but heavy metal and rock. And I feel
Mm,
like that's so many of like coaches that I know and I talk to, they all listen to that. I feel so out of place, but I just
I
can't get
think it's
down
a
with it.
generational. I think it's generational
I
because
think
most
so
of the
too.
coaches I speak to now, they're like rap or some type of like indie or some like that's not specifically rock or like heavy
Yeah.
metal or sort of headbanging music. So I do think it's a generational thing. But in
Yeah.
saying that, and a lot of people hate me for this, but I will stick to it. Sometimes Nickelback gets me there.
Oh god, no, no. I would if that came on when I was trying to hit a PR, I'm taking the weights off and I'm leaving. I'm leaving. Absolutely not.
But like, and this is where like it differs so much. So, like sometimes like suicidal thoughts by Biggie, that gets me in the fucking zone. So like I'll
Yeah.
tune that in and I'm fucking dialed. I'm locked in. But like
Everyone
sometimes
has
like
their just random songs.
100%. Like this is weird. So cardio wise, and again, I hate him for everything that he's done, but his music's fucking undeniable. It's Chris Brown. I fucking like some of his
I
deluxe
have to
albums.
agree with that, unfortunately. Yeah.
Like if I'm doing cardio, he's getting put on. He is the only person that gets me through cardio.
That's crazy. See, I've recently gotten into, like, house music a little bit,
Mm.
and Drake did a little bit of, like, a house music-ish, I don't know if you would call it that, album,
Like
though,
the passion
and
fruit type.
yeah, he had a whole
Yeah.
album, Honestly Nevermind, and it was, like, all those
Yes.
vibes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And, like, that whole album and I have a few other, like, house music type songs. When I was training for a half marathon, that's, like, all I would listen to. It just calmed me and just made me feel a vibe when I was running. But the weight room, completely different story. I need something
Mhm.
hype.
100%. The use of music is so important for strength coaches. It's
Oh,
wild.
yeah. I know, and it's so the team I work with now, we're still new, but the owners of the club own a gym. So we train out of this gym, so we don't have our own weight room.
Mm,
So it's been a huge struggle for me not being able to have like I don't care what the girls want to listen to, even if it's not my choice. If it's gonna get you hype while you're lifting, I want you to put it on. And not having a weight room where they can come in and plug their phone up and blast their music, it's hard because it's hard to get that
Mhm,
the buy-in, again, it's hard to have them wanna be there when we don't really have music we wanna listen to, and to me, like, when I'm lifting, music is everything, like, that completely changes the tone for how your workout's gonna go, and
mhm.
the culture of the environment as well, so, yeah, it's hard not having that.
12% performance increase when you listen to music you like. Fun fact.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one. Cause I mean, I had athletes once, my basketball girls, like, some of them like country, and I hate country. So, I know personally if I'm gonna go in and it was a max day and I'm listening to country, I'm not gonna perform well. I'm just
Mm,
mentally gonna be at a block. And one of my girls, she's the absolute best, I still talk to her today, but she was looking so down, and I was like, "What do you wanna listen to?" And she was like, "No, it's fine." And I was like, "No, dude, what do you wanna listen to? You don't wanna listen to this." And she was like, "NBA Youngboy." And I was like, "Okay, turn it on." She hits a PR. I'm like, "See? That's it definitely has an impact on
mhm.
how you perform."
100%. It's
Yeah.
like it's proven across like different like disciplines as well, whether it's longer distance, shorter distances, lifting, like you do get an increase straight away. It's
Wow,
wild.
that's awesome. Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah, honestly, claim that.
Yeah,
I'd be like,
tw
just walk up to
12%.
the gym speakers and be like, my players need to perform. Fine,
Yeah.
plug.
That's what I'm planning on I've gotten pretty cool with, the front desk guy, so slowly but surely, I'm gonna start having him turn the music up a little bit and play our playlist. Soon enough, we're gonna be blasting some NBA YoungBoy in there.
No, I think that's a really like because not all teams have a set gym for them, and like getting friendly with the working staff of that facility is key to get like just it creates a so much better atmosphere. Like I've walked into like gyms where the staff hated us, and
Oh,
like
yeah.
I slowly but surely just like swung it either way because like I would just like spend hours just chatting shit to them, just like
Yeah,
what's your favorite meal? Let's talk about food, and everyone
right.
takes it. And I'm just like, you need that. So yeah,
Oh, yeah. In a
hundred
city
percent.
like yeah, in a city like we're in too, these our club is so new, and we're a very, like, basketball, football city, like, because we have University of Kentucky, and everyone here has been diehard fans since they were kids, and so having a soccer team, like, a lot of people don't really know about it, like, the exposure isn't there, or they don't really care that much, and that's, like, one thing from day one with the girls, is, like, these are standards that we're gonna have. We might not be in our own weight room, but we honestly are gonna have more standards because people around us, like, we're representing our club, and we need to be kind and respectful to the workers and to the paying customers here. And again, like, it could be terrible, they could hate us and we go in there, but as long as we are respectful and we impact the environment in a positive way, now we have more people coming to our games. Now we have more people supporting. And yeah, there's pros and cons to both, but like
Mm-hmm.
if this is all we have, we can use it to benefit us. It just has to be the way that we go about it.
100%.
Yeah.
I will leave you with one last message, and I think you should trust yourself because, like, I think every process that you've sort of spoken about, I can tell that you're going to fucking impact this team majorly. So have confidence in yourself because you're going to fucking kill it.
Thank you. I needed that. That really means a lot. Thank you.
That's
I'm
all
ready
good.
for it, and I'm ready to
Yeah,
make mistakes.
it
I
sounds
know
it.
I'm gonna make mistakes, but I'm ready for it. I'm confident. I'm excited for
Yeah,
sure.
100%. And
Yeah,
again, mistakes are learning opportunities.
exactly.
That's all they are.
Absolutely.
No, I appreciate you for coming on today. Do you want to plug your Instagram and anything that you've got coming up?
Yeah, definitely gonna have some new stuff, new posts. I'm trying to get better at social media, but as I'm working with the women's team, definitely gonna have a lot of more new stuff coming up on Instagram. So honestly, both of those IGs that you have, yeah, if anyone wants to follow me, follow along on the journey. I'm also on a sober journey for myself, so that's been just a
Congrats.
huge learning experience. Thank you. Yeah, it's just something where I'm constantly trying to spread love and positivity to the whole community and also being a coach as well. So kind of hit both sides of those things. So yeah, definitely follow along both and all the journeys.
No, Thank you, and congratulations on your sobriety as well.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you. Peace.
Thank you. See ya.